Mark Meckler is sitting by in the Middleton Ford hotline. Mark, I have a question for you. You're from Texas, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, before we dive into our topic du jour, what in the heck? Did they all just say, hey, I remember something weird happening in Wisconsin where a whole bunch of Democrats fled to the state of Illinois to deny a quorum. Did they did somebody watch some old documentary on the recall Scott Walker efforts here?
You know, I can't give your Democrats all the credit because our Democrats have done this before. It's not the first time that they've done it. It is about as weak and pathetic a response as you could possibly do. Instead of staying there and debating and fighting it out and taking your lumps, which is what you got to do when you're the minority, they ran away. And amazingly and ironically, they ran to protest gerrymandering, and they ran to the most gerrymandered state in the United States of America, Governor Pritzker's state of Illinois.
Yes, it's 100% true. If you got to look at a heat map of Illinois, a political heat map of Illinois, it's all red. The whole state, it's a big state. It's all red, except for Chicago and Rockford. It's all red. Two cities in that state are the reason why it is the dysfunctional, nightmare taxation and reality, denying nightmare that it is.
Yeah, I would add it's also run by Jabba the Hutt. So, you can't be too surprised that you're getting evil out of that administration.
Isn't that something, though? And so the whole point about this is we want fair maps. No, you don't. You want your maps. That's what Gavin Newsom is now. Gavin Newsom, Kathy Hochul, they're all like, we're going to blow up the maps and we're going to gerrymander our states even more aggressively than they already are. And, and there's the press happily repeating that that's the way it went. That's the way it's going to have to be. I hope your governor is as tough as he's been talking. And, someone goes and drags them back in handcuffs. That's what we were hoping we would have done back in 2011. Alas, it went on for 6 weeks. So
yeah, I'm all in favor of that, and we'll see what happens. But I think, look, our governor is talking pretty tough right now. He does have a habit of talking tough and acting much more weakly than that. But I think he's going to move forward. I think this redistricting is going to take place. It's going to take place along the lines they've already drawn it. And by the way, I want to clarify, California already gerrymandered. Illinois already gerrymandered. New York and all these places, they already gerrymandered. Even if they wanted to redo it, it's very difficult because they've already done it almost to the maximum allowable or possible. So it's just, they don't have a lot more to gain. No,
they don't. I'm not sure what you can do. It'll be interesting to see what the new census produces, particularly for the state of California. Let's talk about the IRS. We finally had a suspension of people who were part of the process back when Barack Obama was president, who were targeting groups like yours, targeted me, for heaven's sakes, little old, me, little Tea Party radio person. I got audited by the IRS. And so I can't believe it's taken this long to clean house.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that it has, because one of my great frustrations always about the federal government is it doesn't matter who's in charge, nobody's held accountable. Depending on who's in charge, you have hearings that go one way or the other, and they're mostly theater, and in the end, mostly nothing happens. And so that really frustrates me. Lois Lerner was one of the ringleaders of all this. Actually, I think it went all the way up to Barack Obama, but Lois Lerner on the ground, she ends up retiring with a full retirement package, no penalties or punishments for what she did to people like you and me and all our Tea Party friends. These two gals are still at the IRS, still in high-level positions. So I really have to give them credit. Thank God they're actually going to do something. They're willing to reach back 10 years and punish these people more than 10 years for the unconstitutional efforts to silence their fellow citizens. I'm happy that it's happening. It's not enough yet. I'd like to see them stripped of their pensions. I would like to see them booted out unceremoniously with their personal belongings in a box down to the curb. We'll see what happens.
I want an investigation. I want a final investigation into this, because we never got much of an investigation. We got an inspector general's report. We got some desk pounding, some speechifying for C-SPAN, but we didn't really get an investigation. Here's why. Lois Lerner was in communication with Kevin Kennedy of the Government Accountability Board here in Wisconsin while this was going on. Kevin Kennedy launched the John Doe investigations, which were going after political donations, you name it, tax records, everything. I want to know if there is, because we believe there is, I want to know if there is a federal nexus between the IRS targeting the FBI and the state of Wisconsin during the John Doe investigations, because what that did was obliterate the conservative network in Wisconsin, and we've never been the same since. So, I want some final answers here. I mean, it's good to see people finally getting fired, but maybe we've got some enterprising folks who are still willing to ask these questions, because I believe this was directed with a hand by the federal government.
Yeah, and I think that's more than a rational belief. I think that there's a likelihood of that. I think you and I have both seen some evidence of that. I think that it was directed by the FBI in Washington, D.C. I think the orders came down from D.C. to crack down in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Governor Walker was a danger to the status quo. He had overturned the status quo. Act 10 had changed everything on the ground in Wisconsin. It changed the state of political play, and it was going to be the model for the rest of the country. And so I think that those in Washington, D.C., in a place of power, realized they had to do everything possibly could to thwart that, and indeed they did.
I think so too. It was the network that was the most important thing. That was really their target. They hated Scott Walker just like they hated Donald Trump, but it was about the network. When the IRS started targeting groups like yours or True the Vote or some of these other, Rock River Patriots, I remember here in Wisconsin, when they started targeting those people, that was meant so that we had an incredibly successful, well-oiled network in Wisconsin that was producing consistent conservative results for our state. And part of it was built on the old Colorado model way back in the day. We saw people wanting to recreate that network in other states. I truly believe that the IRS said, we can't let that happen. We cannot let these nonprofits come on board. We can't let these 501c3s or 501c4s sign on. No way. And someone's got to start scratching the surface of this, because I think that we've barely begun to understand just how deep the deep state goes, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. When you talk about the network, I do think that was the most important thing, not just in Wisconsin, but nationally. With the Tea Party movement, we had a national network.
Yes.
They hated that network, and they wanted to crack down every bit of it. And when I say every bit of it, I mean that went from the highest level donors, whatever donors might have been participating, all the way down to local Tea Party groups. My local group was persecuted. It's the network, and they just can't afford to let those networks exist. I think we live in an alternative time now where we can't afford to let their networks exist, and we need to go after them with the same ferocity that they came after us. If I was president right now, the first thing I would be doing is instructing my DOJ and my FBI to go into every Soros-related organization, to seize every computer, every piece of communication equipment, just like they did to my friend James O'Keefe. You don't have to charge them with a crime. You just say the same thing they said to James. We're doing an investigation. And just seize all those materials. That would disrupt the networks. And I guarantee you there's a treasure trove of information in there indicating the commission of anti-American crimes. I
agree with you entirely. I don't think James ever got a full accounting of what they were looking for specifically. I think he was still getting redacted information up until just a few months ago, trying to get all of the information associated with the raid that he experienced. We had people who are still gun shy about participating in politics again. That's, by the way, that's lawfare 1.0. What we saw in Wisconsin, what you experienced, the targeting of Tea Party groups, large Tea Party groups, small Tea Party groups. That's lawfare 1.0. This is lawfare 2.0 that we're in now, where now the federal government is funneling money into NGOs through USAID for specific political purposes. I'm so with you on investigating Soros, because we know Leonard Bernardo was working directly with Hillary Clinton's campaign to push the Russia collusion hoax. In Wisconsin, everybody forgets this, in Wisconsin back in 2012, the accusation was coordination, which isn't even a crime, but it was coordination. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel lit its hair on fire over coordination. You've got declassified information that says not only was there coordination, there was full direction of a campaign by a foreign NGO.
Yeah, I mean, this is as bad as it gets, and I think this sort of corruption puts the republic at risk, and it leads ultimately to violence. because if this is the way the government's going to go, the government's entirely illegitimate.
Yep.
It's funny, Vicki, I don't read a lot of fiction. I am reading a book right now. I'm reading Kurt Schlichter's latest book, which is called American Apocalypse, which is a fictional history of the Second American Revolution. And if you read that book, what you'll find is that it's not intended to be a predictor, but it's intended to show what can happen from the kind of actions that we're talking about. And it's very scary.
Yeah, he recommends you read it as historical fiction. Because that's exactly what it is. Mark Meckler, where can people find more about you, about your organizations, Convention of States? We're still working on that across the country. Where can people learn more?
On X at Mark Meckler, and they can follow Convention of States by going to conventionofstates.com.
Okay, conventionofstates.com. Meckler with a C-K-L-E-R, and Mark with a K. Thank you, Mark, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Good to have you. Thank you, Middleton Ford, for